It is a mixture.
Okay. So we're going to try to do a couple of things tonight, maybe three things. One is to talk kind of in general as far as like what we do as a REIA, also what some of the investors do in the REIA. And then if there's anything specific that y'all want to talk about, this is a good time to do it. We're going to try to spend about an hour and a half tonight just going through some things. I don't want it to be too basic, and I don't want it to be too over people's head. So if you have some questions, then put them in the chat, or maybe even raise your hand, I guess. Does everybody know how to raise their hand? James, do you want to explain to them how to do that?
I'm not even 100% sure.
I think, well, let's see. I think you go.
I think the best way to do it. I think the best way to do it is just send a chat. I'll keep a good eye on the chat.
Yeah, and I think that if you want to interrupt, that's fine too. If it gets out of hand, we'll mute everybody and then go back to the chat mode. We don't have so many people in here; it's going to be unmanageable. But I don't know if you're a member of a REIA. You know, I started I went to a Robert Allen Nothing Down REIA meeting. He was selling a product. It was $500 on how to buy houses with zero down, and that was in 1982. And then in 1983 and 84, we bought our first property, and it just kicked our butts. Somehow we survived that rehab. It was, in today's dollars, it'd be about $150K rehab, and it was way too big for our skill level to take it on. But we ended up owning that property for 30 years. We paid the mortgage off twice. We had about a $300 a month positive cash flow for the whole 30 years. So even though we almost didn't survive it, once we got it online, it's like time just took care of all of our screw ups. And then after we owned it that 30 years and paid it off that second time, where we pretty much owned it free and clear, we ended up selling it for retail value when what turned out to be a pretty good neighborhood. So real estate, you can do things where you can make money fast, or you can do things where you make them slow. And that we've spent the last 42 years doing that. So if there's anything on that subject that y'all guys want to talk about, that's what we want to try to cover tonight. I could not have survived if it weren't for being a member of the Real Estate Investor Association. And I think wherever you're at, try to find one that's close to where you're at and get connected with them. You know, we're in Houston and San Antonio. We have a REIA, and we're a national charter member, which is we're part of a bigger REIA, which is the national REIA, and they have about 45,000 members last time I heard. And as a result of that, we get to use a lot of we kind of co-op with them, and we get to use a lot of their benefits that they create. Plus, they have a legislative effort and everything. So it's really it's good to be a part of an association, and it's good to be around other people who are local and who are like-minded and who have done quite a few deals. And if you come to the REIA meetings, I don't know how many of y'all have been to our REIA meetings, but if you come to them and you go to the focus groups, I think you're going to find that it's worth your time. I've done that from day one, and I started out, when I screwed that deal up so bad, there was no way to keep going without somebody helping me and being around other people who are doing the stuff. And by becoming a member of the REIA, which then it was called the Ridge Club, by becoming a member of the REIA in 1984, it just changed everything for me. And I knew who to reach out to, how to get deals done, what deals to avoid, and how to make good offers. We're also part of RMG, which is a REIA mastermind group, and there's I think 12 REIAs involved in that, and we meet with them 3 or 4 times a year to figure out the best way to help our members be successful. Because I know I sure needed that help when I first started. And we've learned a lot from that group, and we share, because in that group, we probably have 15,000 members among us, 12 to 15,000. And we've learned a lot about what makes people succeed or what makes them fail. So the REIA is really the backbone to that. And a lot of the people, I don't know how many volunteers are on this call right now, but a lot of the members are volunteers and they help out at the REIA, and it becomes a real community. So are there any things that we need to cover, James, before we get rolling? Or if there's any questions?
Wow, that was a lot. You just like went on like a 2-minute. I was trying to find a way to reach in and say, hey, have we officially kicked off? Because I want to make sure that we have the recording going and everything like this.
Okay.
And also officially kick everything off and hand everything over to you.
I don't think I can share. I think you got to give me permission to share. I just sent you a request.
Do I want to or not?
Yeah, if you have to, let me share.
All right. So are you ready to start?
Yeah, I think so. If I can make it.
Okay, Hal, can you get us kicked off or queued up and ready to go?
Hey, okay. John. I see John out there. How are you, John?
I'm doing great, man.
Are you buying anything?
No, I'm trying to sell one.
Yeah.
On finance. I've had it out there for
selling what I thought was a really good property.
Which one?
One I've got in Brazoria County. You need to go buy that.
Where's it at?
Killer deal, but it didn't work out the way I thought it was.
Brazoria, okay.
Yeah, the lesson there. I already knew that. Don't buy where there's no buyer. Don't buy a property you're going to flip if there's no buyers around. It's hard to.
Don't work too good.
No.
Justin said y'all have a few that are sitting.
Do what?
Justin said y'all had a few that are just sitting.
Well, we got that one, and we got one in Robstown. So yeah, that's those. We don't want those to sit because you lose 1 month's rent or income from it, and it eats up about 4 months or 5 months of income. So can't do that.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, let's go ahead. Let me kick everything off. I want to officially welcome again. For those that don't know, may or may not know, I am James Haney. I'm the executive for REIA, which is Alamo REIA and Greater Houston REIA. Welcome to the call tonight. A lot of information to share with you on how to be successful in real estate and how the REIA can take you to where you want to go. It's all about being in the right rooms and surrounding yourself with the right people. And speaking of that, we have a great presenter tonight, as you've already heard. He has been buying houses since the very early 80s. I like to tease him and let him know that he was watching. But without further ado, we have Mr. Ray Stasser on the call tonight, who's pretty much going to be leading the call. However, before I officially hand it over to Ray, a couple of things. For one, if there is a specific topic that you want us to talk about, or if you have questions, please either raise your hand or the chat, and I will find a way to interrupt Ray at the appropriate time. And also, just another friendly request, if you could please turn your video on, that would help us out as presenters. It's not required, but we do ask that you turn your video on if you would be willing to. So with that being said, go ahead and take it over, Ray.
Okay, so James put out some copy about some things that we want to try to cover tonight, things like how to start investing, what wholesalers need to do, realtors' way to make more profit, flippers and rehabbers to scale and systematize, buy and hold investors building long-term wealth. So those are some of the things. that we can talk about. And if y'all have questions on those, then feel free to talk about them, because this meeting tonight is for y'all. What we're trying to do is we kind of got a little bit off track, but when we get new members, a lot of times our members are at different levels, or they may be from out of the area, and they just need some questions answered. And so that's kind of the goal for tonight. If somebody was at one of our meetings recently, hopefully you're on the call, and you might be able to provide you some information tonight as why I think it's real valuable for you to join the REIA, and not just join it, but be a part of it. A few years back, we won an award for being the best REIA in the country, and that was right before COVID happened, and it was so much fun because everybody in the group was working together, helping each other. And you're going to find that people who are really doing things, not the people who are selling coaching and stuff like that, but the people who are really doing things and that really have a lot going on, they're happy to help. I've always been that way, and I've been that way partly because people were always that way with me when I was starting out, and they were available to us. So don't hesitate to reach out and make good connections and friends, because the people in the group are going to be the ones that are going to help you be successful. And you would just give me an example. Probably one of my best friends in the real estate investor circles is Tom Pike. And we still trade information. We still talk back and forth. We still help each other out all the time doing things. And when you get a few friends like this, you'll just be surprised what you can do. You'll be going into something, or somebody will tell you something, it won't make sense. You won't know how to take advantage of it, or you'll know how to do it all, but just 10 or 20% of what needs to be done, and then you lose the deal, or you don't make the kind of profit that you thought you should have made. And so the key is you've got to reach out and communicate with people and be a part of it. And I think if you think of the REIAs, think of them like a big tent where people can gather around and work together and help each other be successful. And you'll just be surprised how effective that is. And it made all the difference for me. So let's just go through real quick some of the things the REIA will do, and then we're going to get into the nitty gritty of some stuff. And we made this PowerPoint a while back, and let's see. I got to click in the right place. James, do you see it where it says Lone Star REIA on the screen? Are you still there? James?
I'm here.
I can see you, Bree.
Can you see where it says Lone Star REIA on the screen?
No, you haven't started sharing your screen yet.
Okay, I did share it.
It's not showing up.
Okay. Let me go back to where you shared the screen. Okay. Okay, do you see like a PowerPoint there?
There you go. Yes, I see your screen.
Okay, good. I apologize, I'm not.
But it shows it doesn't look like it's a PowerPoint, but.
Does it look like a PowerPoint? Does it look right now?
Yes, but we see your notes.
Oh no, it's switched over. It's going to the wrong thing. So let me
Yeah, you have to get in presentation, the opposite mode, under display settings, I think, at the top.
I think I did share the wrong thing, but I think I got it now.
Yep, looks perfect.
Okay, thank you. So, and one of the things, I'm just going to go through some of this stuff real quick, but my goal is to really convince you that a lot of your success depends of having a good community and a good network. And if I talk about things, there's so much that you won't see because it's kind of beneath the surface, but don't hesitate to ask questions. So these are just some of the vendors, and the whole goal is to have good vendors. If you know good vendors, invite them to come to the meetings, because the vendors are, in my opinion, about 40% of why we want to be in the REIA, is so that we have REIAs that, so we can have vendors that we can hold accountable and also get them to teach us about what their expertise is. And with vendors, it can be anybody from a credit reporting agency. It could be somebody like that sells materials like Home Depot, people to help us do skip tracing. So these are just some of the vendor programs that are available for us, because we're the only exclusive chapter member, national chapter member in San Antonio and Houston. And then we always have a lot of events going on. And I don't think I have a slide in here for workshops, but James, just share with them, like in what our workshops are, how many meetings we have a month.
So in Alamo and San Antonio, we have a lunch and learn. We have a women's group. It's called WIRE, Women in Real Estate. And then we also have a landlord, a rental property focus group, is for landlords and buy and hold investors. And then in Houston, we have, and then we also have a cash flow game that it's based on the book Rich. That is also in San Antonio. And then for Houston, we have a wholesaling and new investor focus group. We have a landlord focus group as well. We have a commercial and multifamily focus group. It's actually about to start here shortly. And then we have a wire group, and then we have a geographical group that's down between the Bay Area real estate investors focus group, and that meets on the third Thursday. So it's actually tomorrow night if you're in the Houston area and want to go to that. And so we have and then we also have some online events that we do. We are also kicking off very soon. I think I've got it on the calendar tentatively for next Friday, an online haves and wants call, haves, wants, and deals. So if you have deals, or you're looking for deals, or you have money to loan, or you're looking for money, that would be a great call to be on.
When does that one start?
So that one's going to start probably next week. Okay. But I'll put some links in the chat to our calendars, and you can check them out. The best thing to do is just to check the calendars on a regular basis. I've spent a lot of time today on the calendar. It's quite a few things there.
Yeah, James is really instrumental in getting a lot of the behind the scenes stuff done that you aren't aware of. But let me just tell you on the focus groups, and I tell people this all the time, I'm sure they're tired of me saying it, but when I first started and I was standing in the back of the room in 1982 and 83, I was too shy to go up and talk to people and really figure out, what I needed to do next. And at that time, it was just simple things I needed to learn. But as an introvert, I wouldn't do it. Well, when I started going to the focus groups, everything started changing for me, because then they typically were a lot smaller. I would get to know the people better, become friends with them, and then I wouldn't hesitate to call them on the phone and say, hey, how do you do this? Or what would you do here? Or, whatever. Who did you say that person was that could do this thing? And so the focus groups really made a big difference. And the focus groups, I can tell you from an organizational point of view, and James manages the big part of it, is a major pain in the butt. But to me, it's so important, because it's not like coming to the general meeting. You actually get to know people a little bit better, and you can do things that you can't do in a general meeting. It's just a lot more intimate. And since I'm doing one tomorrow, I do one a month, and it's in League City. And just to give you an idea, there'll be probably 10 to 15 people there, and we'll talk the topic for tomorrow, and each one has different topics each meeting, but just to kind of dive deep, just so you kind of see. That one we'll be talking about how to manage and control contractors, and how to get jobs done on budget and stuff like that. And I've probably done 1,000 rehabs in the last 40 years. We've never stopped. We've done major and minor rehabs, and I'll be leading that conversation. And just the lessons I've learned in my lifetime of doing this, it's amazing. And we're doing a rehab right now in Clearwater, Florida, and one of the guys that I'm partnering with, he's done 20 rehabs, and you would think in 20 rehabs you would know how to get things done. And he's a good guy and everything, but it's like there's so much he hasn't run into and so many things he hasn't seen. And we went through that job the other day. We spent about 3 hours on the phone just going step by step through that rehab, because it's about a $50,000 rehab. And when he walked away from it, he learned a lot, because when you've been doing something your whole life and you've made several mistakes, or some of the mistakes several times, you learn from that. And so being around people who are really out there doing it every day and who've learned a lot from this process, you've got to be around those people every chance you get. And that's what we try to do. We try to put people in front of the room who have real experience on some level of it. And I know personally, if somebody is real knowledgeable and they're within 100 miles of me, I'm going to go spend time listening to whatever they got to say, because it'll make or break your deals. You'll be able to do deals other people can't do because you heard some technique or some process of how to do something. So anyway, so that's on our website, right, James, what the focus groups are and where they're at?
Yes, and I've already dropped the links in the chat to the Houston calendar and the Alamo calendar.
Okay.
So
this is where our membership is, and if you have any questions on this, you can just go to the website or ask James or chat with James. And I don't know if this is even, I know the prices look right. I don't know how, this is an old slide, so I think is it more or less right, James?
No, that's for a workshop that we did. That's not membership.
Okay.
That's in tonight.
Well, I think
membership is one.
We were doing 2 or 3 day.
Go ahead.
If you sign up for the membership, we'll do it like a 2 or 3 day class on just what we do in real estate and some of the deals that typically I'll run that class, and we'll talk about a bunch of case studies. Maybe over the 3 days, we'll walk through a house, through several houses. We'll guesstimate about what the repairs are, and then we'll walk through quite a few case studies. And we normally will throw that in. We do that about every third month now, James?
Oh, that's something that we need to discuss. Yeah, we were doing it for once a quarter.
Yeah, so we try to get it out there regularly because you learn so much in those 3 days, and we cover a lot of material, and it's pretty much a wall-to-wall material. So let's see, that's a disclaimer. Now, I don't know why I threw this up here, but this is where, when I started, I found out that this guru named Jack Miller, and it turns out he was, well, first of all, the first guru I ran into was Robert Allen, and he wrote the book Robert Allen, Nothing Down. Well, Robert Allen wasn't a real guru, but to me, he seemed like a real guru because he knew 100 times more than I did. But then when I started doing deals, after about my 10th or 15th rehab, and our flip, then there was so much that I wanted to know, and I was making money. And I found out who Jack Miller was, and he had this slide on his screen. And I always wondered, in the beginning, I wondered, like, why is Jack Miller an expert on tax benefits when he's really like a master investor? And then I realized, well, he's an expert on tax benefits because those are where his partners come from. And Peter Fortunato, and would be at and this is a slide for Peter Fortunato, and Peter would be at every one of Jack's meetings, and they would just talk about what is a house made of. And you see this is like a picture of a house, and a house has growth, and appreciation. It has profits, has a lot to do with management, income, amortization, where the amortization will pay off a loan, the tax benefits, and the type of use. And any one of these things can make or break a deal, and any one of these things could bring in, maybe be important to have the right partners with you, that you may be able to do everything, but you don't want to do the management. A buddy of mine, 15 years ago is when I met him. He had a 70-hour week job, and he bought 100 houses in his first year, but he had no time for management. And what he did is he basically took this management and handed that over to another person because his bandwidth was his problem. And you're going to find bandwidths always are problems. And so just learning how to manage these different parts, we want to do that. By the way, I said that if somebody is really smart and knows their stuff and they're anywhere near you, you need to go check them out and learn from them, even if it costs a few bucks to do it. Peter Fortunato, my mentors when I started, Peter Fortunato was the only one that's still left alive. And that the fortunate thing is he's probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met in real estate. And he does a couple events every year in Florida. And we've been known to bring him to town and speak to our group also. And if we get enough, we got to pay for his time here and everything. So we'll have to charge that class. But if we bring Peter to town, you have to go to it. I mean, it's just, if you're serious about being a real estate investor, when we get people like Peter, you need to go to them because they just expand your vision so much. There's just, you think you know what you're doing. And trust me, if you've done less than 50 deals, you're just now scratching the surface. So anyway, so this is a chart that came out there by Peter. And so that was a pretty decent.
By the way, don't let that scare you. I know sometimes that could come across as intimidating, but just make sure that you have the right people around you. So hey, don't come off right.
By the way, John, is James sound loud enough to you? Because to me, he sounds real faint.
I can hear him okay.
He doesn't sound faint to you?
Ned, maybe a little.
Okay, well, you sound kind of faint too, so maybe it's my speaker. Maybe my speakers aren't working right. Maybe I have them covered up or something. I probably do. Oh, I think I do have my I'm not going to touch it. I think I have my bottom part of my laptop facing down. I bet that's mine. Okay, so this is a little bit about me, and this is old. I've been buying houses for 42 years. I was a past president of the Ridge Club when they were still open, and at the time we had probably when I was on board of directors, we had around 2,000 members. It was really good to have a large group because when you have a large group, it's easy to bring people like Peter in and bring the really good vendors in. So, just think about being a part of your REIA. Hopefully you're in Houston or San Antonio. There's several REIAs in both places. I think we have a really good one. We're not a coaching REIA. There are some REIAs that are out there and their only function is really to coach. And the way you can tell if it's a coaching REIA or if they're busy selling something like that, then they're not going to have focus groups and they're not going to have vendors typically, and they're not going to be a national a chapter member. As an association, our primary goal is to make our members successful. And the way we do that is by giving them good content that's useful, give them access to vendors. It's a lot of work, but that's kind of how you can tell. So let's see, and jump through some of this stuff. So these are some of the things that our members do, and I've done all of these. I don't know what evolve is. I guess evolve, it means to grow and continue to learn and educate yourself. So we've done a lot of wholesaling, some hoteling. We've done a lot of flippings over the year, We own a lot of rental properties. We own a lot of owner finance notes also. And that's generally what our members do. If it's commercial, it's kind of the same thing. Most of what I personally do is single family houses, but we've done small mobile home parks, and we currently own a small mini storage. So we've done some of those things. Not everybody can do everything, and I almost feel like you can spread yourself too thin. Like we also have 8 Airbnbs, and I think for me personally, I think the 8 Airbnbs are probably slowing me down a little bit, so we may think about selling those. I'm not sure. We're going to keep them for the meantime because we do the one that I like in Galveston. We'll usually get, how many people we have at this last mastermind session we did, James?
I think there was like 22 or 23.
Yeah,
think.
so we've done a couple, have we done it once a year or every 6 months or so?
We've done it once the last 2 years, once last year and then once this year. But we're in talks and discussion of maybe doing it, ramping that up to doing it twice a year.
This last one I really enjoyed because we went around and we tried to help each other in the meetings, and we talked about goals. And then when the people had goals, we actually kind of broke them down into small details on how we could actually get to those goals. So that was just something. In fact, that was the way you got to that, is if you contributed something to the charity, the Helping Arms. Is it Helping Arms that we? Is that it? Is that the right name, James?
Arms of Hope.
Arms of Hope. Okay. So anyway, so we contribute to them every year. So that's some of the stuff of what we do. Some more things. I've been doing sub twos for before Pace Morby was born, probably, and been doing a lot of seller financing and lease options. So we've learned a lot from there, and I've learned a lot from the people around me. I probably learned sub twos from Jack Miller, and to do that right. Seller financing there's a lot to that, and seller financing, we could look at that in a couple of ways, where you're either financing somebody or you're getting financing from somebody. And of course, that's two different, depending on what side of the table you're sitting on, how you structure that and set that up. We're going to have different goals with that. And then lease options, we've bought and sold with lease options. So those are some things that we've done. And if y'all have questions on any of those things, feel free to ask about them. And otherwise, I'm just going to keep going through these PowerPoints to keep us on task. So are you seeing any questions or anything in the chat, James?
Not as of yet, no.
Okay, so let's see. So this is just a general summary of what we do on the wholesaling. I'm not a wholesaler. I've wholesaled property with James before. I usually try to find properties that I can keep or flip. But we'll spend some time doing that. Now, y'all do that. One of your focus groups is about wholesaling, right, James? You and Drew do that one?
Yeah, me, Drew, and David do that one.
Yeah, and give us a little rundown on how that works.
So we actually say that last part again, Ray?
Getting good interaction with the group, and you think the people in the
absolutely, yes. So what we do is we basically have 4 things that we cover in the that focus group. One is an overview, and then like the wholesaling process and how to get started and everything. Then the second topic is marketing and lead generation. And then the third one is acquisitions, where we talk about, like phone scripts and how to talk to sellers and how to get from the point where it's a lead to where you put it under contract. And then the last thing that we talk about is exit strategies and disposition. Everything from the point that you get the contract to closing. And that's actually our next topic is dispositions. And we just kind of rotate through those topics. It also moves around the city. So right now we're in Pearland. I think the next go round, we're probably going to move it to like Sugarland or something like that. But we bounce around the city in that focus group. Okay,
and this, if you don't know anything about wholesaling, this is basically the recipe here. Is you find the deal, we show you how to do the math, or you already know how to do the math. Finding the owners, every one of these things can be complicated. We put it under contract. When I first started, I didn't even know how to fill out the contract. And now when people call me up and say, well, Ray, what do you put in here? It's like, it'd be easy for me to say, well, don't bug me. But somebody a long, long time ago, in fact, his name was Richard, I called him up and I had an opportunity to make a lot of money on a deal, and I needed to know how to fill in a particular blank. And he took his time going through it with me, making sure I understood it. And if it weren't for that, I don't know if maybe that would have been the end of my real estate investing if I wouldn't have had that person there to help me out. And that's the whole point of the community. when we get into those situations, we need people that we can go to and ask questions without, paying an attorney $200 to show us how to do something. And then assign the contract. Of course, that's a big thing. And then close the deal. And every one of these things take a lot of steps. And you can be really bad at this and really be successful, but then as you get better, you're going to do more and more. For example, close the deal. If we're flipping a house and we put, just give you an example, when we get ready to flip a house, and that we'd call that maybe closing the deal. If it's a retail sale, we have 51 steps that we do, and it sounds like it's overwhelming, but what's really bad. It's not 51 steps is not overwhelming, especially over a 3-week period. And that's what, you hear people say, oh, well, is it worth having a closing transaction closer, a closing transaction help, somebody, helping you do the closing. And people pay $500 to $750 for that. But it's worth it if you don't have that person on staff, because they're not going to miss those steps. And if you miss one of those steps or you get the steps in the wrong order, it could be very painful. You could make a lot of mistakes. So as you go through this, whether you're closing a deal on a retail flip or you're closing a deal on the wholesaling, just knowing how to do that is something we're gonna spend time and energy trying to get better at. And the quicker you can do that, the more deals you'll have that don't fail because you did something wrong in this closing part. And it's true on all this: assign the contract, getting it under contract, finding the owners. All of these require a lot of steps. Probably the simplest thing on here is figuring out what you should pay for the property. And even that is difficult, because in order for us to know what our MAO is, our maximum allowable offer, we have to know what the repairs are and we have to know what the value is. So you can see there's a lot of steps in all of these. And just this last one alone has got 51 steps on one particular type of transaction. So that's kind of what we do. If we flip, these are some of the things: find the deal. That's the same we did before. Close the deal, start, manage, and finish the rehab. We're going to talk a lot about that at that focus group I'll be doing tomorrow night, because I can't tell you how much of this I've screwed up over the years, and we still screw this up. Sell the property fast. We're fortunate in our group in Houston to have TK in the group, and TK and his mom are partners, and they are brilliant at this. I've learned so much from them on how to get rid of properties fast, and you'll see this is a big Achilles heel for a lot of us, and how to close on the property fast for bigger profit, and just how to squeeze more profit out of the deals. We should have that in there, but that's one of the things on what we do. And then owner finance. This is if we're the seller and we're selling it. Now, there's also another scenario where the buyer, this is where we're owner financing it to someone else, but we also have a scenario where we're buying it through owner financing. But this is where we'll get long-term money somehow. We'll find the deal, we'll close the deal, start and finish rehab, sell the property by holding the note, and create the cash flow. So the bottom line here is this is what we're after, is create the cash flow and create the note. So we've jump through all these hoops to do here. And some people look at this, and let's see if rent's on here. Yeah, some people look at this as how does this compare to rent? How does getting monthly cash flow compare to renting a property? And I would say early on, I was pretty clear that rents were the best way to go to generate long-term, powerful, meaningful cash flow. And now I'm leaning more to the other side, because now my time is so valuable to me. And well, it was always valuable to me. I just didn't realize how valuable it was. You give up a lot of time when you become a landlord, unless you're willing to do what my buddy did. And when he bought all those houses, he just hired a landlord for every house. And then he knew he was going to lose money in efficiency. He's going to lose money in the sense that he had to pay somebody every month. But on the other hand, he was making a lot more money by buying the houses than he ever was by managing them. And so he spent all of his time mastering that. This is, and this is, I see somebody's doing a class on this, but this is an example of a deal, just show you a case study. This is where we went and knocked on doors. And I, as an introvert, introverts don't knock on doors, but for whatever reason, we had a partner that talked me into knocking on the doors with her. And that, we went out that one day and we knocked on 3 doors. And the reason we knocked on 3 doors is because this one we ended up spending a lot of time on. And out of those 3 deals, we bought this one. We almost bought the second one if we would have been able to clear up the title. And that's the only reason we could not clear up the title before the sale. And so, and then the third one, the people didn't want to talk to us. And that was one day of me going out with a partner and us buying this deal. And I don't know if I remember the numbers, but you could see inside of it what it looks like. This is the backyard. This is a house in the Woodlands. And this is what we paid for it. And I don't want to go too deep on this, but this was a foreclosure. It was a tax foreclosure, and the people needed $20,000 to bring it current for the taxes. And they owe, this property was probably worth $200,000. Now it would probably be worth $300,000. But this property was worth about $200,000. It was in pretty decent condition. I think, as you can see, it's not tore up. And the house looked like this all throughout. The flooring looked good. The walls looked good. And this lady was renting this house to a tenant who was not paying. And she was intimidated by the tenant. And so she was not paying her taxes because she wasn't collecting her rent. She wasn't collecting her rent because the person was a bully that was in the house. And there's a lot of reasons why people don't pay rent. And she inherited this house, and she was about to lose it. And we met up with her and said, well, would you take back a loan for 30 years at $80,000 at 5% interest? And she said she would. And then we borrowed money just from another member in the REIA, and that's why you want to know who's in your REIA. We borrowed $30,000 to pay the $20,000 in taxes. And I remember I knew the guy pretty good, and I just said, hey, I want to borrow this money for a year or more. And they said, fine, you can borrow it. And so they became a second lien holder in this particular case. So we were in it for $110,000. We did now the people that were renting it, I said, look, you could stay in this house as long as you pay your rent on time. And as this may be more than what you care to know, but just, I think it's instructive if I just kind of share with you the thoughts that were going through my head as I was putting this deal together. I didn't want to when the lady agreed to finance me and the other person I was working with, it was her call what we did with it. But I told her, look, as a partner, we can cash out of this whenever you want, but I'd prefer to hold it a minimum of a year. And honestly, because it's in the Woodlands, it's a nice house, I would rather hold this the rest of my life. And I said, but I'll leave it up to you. And she wanted to sell it right away. And I said, well, let's do this. So let's at least hold it for a year, because then we won't be paying taxes like it's a dealer property, and we'll get the benefit of long-term capital gains. So when I went to the private lender, which was a member of the REIA, I just said, hey, I want to borrow this money for a year more or less, because I figured once we held it for a year, we would probably pay it off 2 or 3 months later. And it turns out that the tenant that was in it, he lasted about 3 or 4 months. And my partner, I had her being the first level of response to the tenant to try to collect, and she couldn't collect from him, and because he was being a bully to her too. And I said, well, then let me take it over and I'll do it. And so we evicted the guy and got him to move out. And he didn't keep his part of the deal. You know, he was supposed to pay his rent, and he was trying to be a bully. But when you have a lot of rental properties, you learn how to go through the eviction process. And she didn't have that experience, but I did. And it didn't hurt my feelings, you know, because we have to pay taxes and insurance. I got an underlying mortgage. So there's no way I'm going to let that guy stay there and live for free like he did with the previous owner. And so we kicked him out. Yeah.
Hey Ray, I want to interrupt. You said something a couple of times, and I just want to throw in a quick little point here. When it comes to your tenants and even sellers, that maybe want to stay in the house after you close on it, things like that, you really have to make it strictly a business. Okay. Try not to get too personal with them or put your personal feelings. It has to be a business decision, because otherwise people will take advantage of you every single time. And that's when he says, that, people were being bullied, the tenant was bullying, that's what's causing it. It's because they're having personal feelings. So that's very important. I want to just kind of throw that in, Ray.
Well, and it takes a long time to explain what you've spent a lifetime doing and learning how to do. But early on, I went to one of Jack Miller's seminars, and Jack Miller said there's right and there's wrong. And a lot of people think that line is real wide, and he says it's real narrow. And when you first start, you think the line's real wide. But as you do this more and more, you really figure out pretty quick what's right and what's wrong. A person living in a property not paying his fair share and you having to pay it, that's in fact them stealing that money from you. Maybe it's not intentional, but it's coming out of your pocket. So it's not a luxury we have. And so if that person already had a history of abusing the previous owner, and this wasn't going to happen to me, because every penny we take out of our pocket to pay for his rent affects our bottom line. And I'm not his dad, I'm not his caretaker. If he can't afford to stay in that house, then he's got to come up with another plan. And to you guys on the phone, I probably sound real tough, but I even went to him. I said, look, this is not working out. We made a deal. You're not able to keep it. You know the situation. You're going to have to move. And we ended up having to evict him. And before the eviction went through, he finally moved out. I said, you can't afford the house. This house, you're living in what would now be a $300,000 house, and you can't even afford the rent. So he ended up moving out. We parted, I guess, on good terms. Honestly, it didn't matter to me, because this asset requires taxes and insurance. And the lady had already lost a lot of equity in this deal, because it was fixing to be foreclosed on taxes that she wasn't paying because he wasn't paying her. So it's really like nobody had a choice in this. It had to happen. And so when he moved out, we put another person in there. They lived in there for another 12 to 15 months. I don't remember. And then my partner ended up wanting to sell it. Now, I disagree with this, because we would have had this property real close to being free and clear. It would have went up $150,000 in value, or $100,000 in value. Our equity, our debt would have went down, because we were paying 5% interest. So, and I might even doubled up on the payments. I don't know. My wife does that all the time on our properties. So in this particular case, we made $110K profit on this one deal, and it was one afternoon of talking to tax foreclosures. And this in Texas, the first Tuesday of every month, we have a tax foreclosure and a mortgage foreclosure. And in fact, a buddy of mine recently died. His estate was totally screwed up. He was having problems. He got hooked up with these scammers, where I tried to convince him. I guess he had some sort of dementia, but I wasn't his son, so I didn't have the authority to have him go to a psychiatrist. But I knew this guy for 30 years. One time, he's a real smart investor, and he ended up getting foreclosed on because he didn't do the sub-2 right. This happened 2 months ago. He didn't do the sub-2 right, and we could not get the lender to tell us the payoff. And I wasn't making a penny on this. I was just helping the son of the person that passed away, and we spent 5 hours on it trying to get it done. And somebody bought a $250,000 property or $220,000 property at the tax sale for $69,000. And we couldn't stop the sale. And normally when I do a sub-2, we get the proper information so that we can stop the sale. If you don't know, a sub-2 is where you take over an existing mortgage. But when you do that, you have to take it over properly. You have to get the right information, and you have to be able to work with the lender. And because this buddy of mine that I've known for all these years he didn't do all that right. He cut those corners, and the lender refused to talk to us because he didn't put the right things into place. And so that happened this 2 foreclosure sales ago. And that happens at every single foreclosure sale. People are ending up losing properties for whatever reason. The heirs have died, not the heirs, but the owners have died, or they're not making the mortgage payments, whatever. There's 100 reasons why it happens. We do a lot of, over the years, we've bought a lot of foreclosures, and that's where when real estate sits there idle for a long time, eventually it's going to be foreclosed on because of mortgages or taxes. And so going to the sales and knowing how to do the title research and knowing how liens work and stuff like that are real imperative, real critical to that process. And so if you do it wrong, you'll end up losing money or losing all your money. And so you just don't want to do that wrong. If you're going to get involved in that, you want to make sure you're running the rules and the deals by other people who have more experience than you. And that's the power of the REIA. So in that case, we made somewhere between 90 and 110,000. We would have made 300,000 if we'd held on to it. And because she wanted to finance her daughter's wedding, we cashed out of it. I didn't want to, but she did. But sometimes you got to. Sometimes in this business, a lot of people will flip houses in order to replace their job, but then they'll do these deals like this when they come across their table, because this property is never going to go down in value. The tenants are typically, if you qualify them right, you're going to have somebody pay off that mortgage for you, just like we did in our very first deal. They paid that mortgage off twice. So that's what can happen. And so you flip some of your properties and you hold on to some. This is the kind we hold on to. And so I regret that we couldn't, but that was the deal I made with the lady when we bought it. So in the rentals, we create the cash flow, and you can kind of just see, we find the deal, we buy it right. Beginning investors always get this wrong. It's just unbelievable. In fact, we have a negotiation class coming up. James, what are the dates for that negotiation class?
April 26th and 27th.
I got to remember this. Anyway, Drew and I will be doing that class, and that's a 2-day class, and we'll talk about how to do creative deals like the sub-twos and the owner finances, and then we're going to talk about how to negotiate. And I guarantee you, 90% of the people on the phone call will get this wrong. You think you're going to buy it at this price, and we'll show you how to get this price right, and how to close the deals more often, how to close them in less time, how to negotiate with your contractors. In fact, we're going to talk a lot about that tomorrow at the focus group, how to negotiate with the contractors, how to get them to be your partners in the sense that they want to get the job done on time. Maybe not take profit, but they want to do a good job with you. So, and that's all a part of negotiation. And then, if you're going to go the rental market, then you need to know how to qualify people. You need to kind of have a working understanding of the Texas Property Code. That comes with time. The good thing about the Texas Property Code is there's lots of people like myself who've been dealing with the Texas Property Code for 40 plus years. We know a lot about it. There's things we can't remember or the rules change. But one of our vendors he's an attorney that represents landlords. He's always at every meeting. He's very easy to ask questions to. And so we'll learn how to become better at that. And then our goal is to create cash flow at the end of the day. And if we do it right, we'll have cash flow. If we do it wrong, it'll be an albatross. And so we just got to make sure we do that stuff right. One of the things about the rental and the seller finance thing is, if you do this part right, then the tenant's going to be buying that house for you. You're not going to be buying the house. You're going to get tax depreciation. You're going to get tax benefits. You're going to get, when you go to sell, you're going to get long-term capitalization, where you basically pay a lot lower tax rate. And the bottom line is they're going to pay the house off for you. So we've got to be masters at this. Just as when I first met Jack Miller, I met him at a 2-day conference where he was talking about, he spent one whole day on doing mobile homes and talking about how the numbers work with mobile homes. And he spent another whole day on talking about how to do rentals and be a good landlord. And that's about how long those conversations need to be. You need to spend about a day with somebody that has a lot of experience talking about, if you're doing mobile homes, you need to spend a day with that person because they need to tell you from A to Z, and then you need to probably hear it 5 more times before everything sinks in. And also ask questions, just like James said, well, he brought that point up, and I just kind of glossed over it. And that's what's going to happen when you've got that person that's been doing something a long time. They're going to gloss over a lot of little details that make all the difference. And it's your job to slow that person down and get them to help you with those small details, and not let them gloss over it. Okay, let's see. So some leads. Are there any questions so far about anything we've talked about?
I don't have any in the chat, but if anybody wants to put some in the chat or unmute themselves, they can ask a question. But I also did want to mention that I did put in the chat the link to that negotiation on the 26th and 27th. It's in the chat.
Okay. That's probably going to be done in Houston where we do our regular meeting, right?
Correct.
The last time we did that negotiation class was about 5 years ago, and what you will be shocked at how much you learn in one day just on negotiating, because we'll literally run you through a deal and then at the beginning of it, and we'll run you through a deal at the end. And nobody does the deals at the end like they did when they came in there. And there's just so many ways to do these things, and we'll spend all day. We'll show you the deal, then we'll give you a case study where we actually work through a deal, and then we'll spend the rest of the time talking about better ways to do deals, and spend a lot of our time. We'll go deep into seller financing and sub-twos as best as we can with that limited amount of time, and then at the end we'll do another deal that's relatively complicated, just like the first one we present to you, and you'll be surprised how much better you are at negotiating and getting killer deals. A lot of times people get leads and they just don't convert them. It's surprising, but maybe not so surprising, because when you haven't done a lot of deals, you don't know what tools and limitations you have and what power you have. After you do a bunch of deals, then you realize that, hey, I can make these deals work in different ways, and your conversion rate goes through the roof. So, and we'll do that on the 26th and 27th. So, if there are no questions, one of the big things we need to know about is like where we're going to get our leads from, and so if it's time or money, think about that. You can pay people to give you leads, or you can get the leads. And I don't know. Let's see. Yeah. So time, money, networking. I probably get more of my deals from networking than anything right now, because the people at the REIA know me. I've been doing this. I've been buying houses for 40 years. People just call me. They'll call me, and I haven't talked to them for 10 years. My yard men bring me deals. My dentist has given me deals. I've gotten my barber's given me deals. You'd be shocked. They're just sitting around us. Sometimes I say, is it better to go wide or is it better to go deep? If you go wide, that means you're touching a lot of things. But if you go deep, you're not touching as many, but you get down deeper. So if we can learn how to negotiate and put deals together better, like in that negotiating class and deal structuring class, you're going to be amazed. You don't need to have as many opportunities when you know how to make deals work. And so let's see, networking, marketing. In my 40 years of doing this, we're like a roller coaster. There's times where we're spending a lot of money on marketing and times where we're not spending much money on marketing. Because the deals are better now than they've been in the last 5 years, we're thinking very seriously about spending money on marketing, serious money on marketing, because people now can't make the deals like they could 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So our opportunities are probably better right now than they've been since 2008, 9, and 10. I don't know that we're at that level, but it's been better. We're not at the 8, 9, 10 level, but so let's say 10, so that's 15 years ago. We haven't had deals like we do now for 15 years. And in my life of doing this, there's been 3 times that that's happened. So if we're not out there talking to people about properties and not understanding how to get them under contract and structure them in the right way, you're missing a great opportunity, because this is the time to really get up to speed. And I think it's going to get better for buyers, even more so than now in the next year or two. So some lead generation techniques. This is time or materials, or sorry, time or money. This is a time thing. If you're driving for dollars, that's a time thing. And that's how I started, driving for dollars. It wasn't called driving for dollars then, but that's what I did. Skip tracing, remote voicemail, text code calling. So we've had VAs do all of those. And I've not personally been real successful at it unless I was knocking on doors. That kind of code calling I've been very successful at. Where you talk to people on the phone, not been real successful. Skip tracing, yeah, successful. And by the way, skip tracing, when I started, it was $100 to $200 to skip trace somebody. Now it's 12 cents. So the technology has come so far that we have to be able to do skip tracing. One of the national REIA vendors is IDI Core, and that's what they do. We also get skip tracing. Another one of our vendors is Connected Investors. They also do skip tracing. And there's quite a few platforms that do that quite a bit. So
yeah, Investors is a great platform for that. You can build your list like that. You can even pull reports on the properties. They actually just rolled out a new their interface and their technique. But I'll caution you, don't Google Connected Investors and join. Go to our website. I'll put a link in the chat if you want to check it out. We also do a training on that once a month on how to use Connected Investors. Another source for driving for dollars, an app that actually...
Before you go on, just tell them what Connected Investors is. It's a platform, right? Tell them a little bit about it.
Yeah, you can build your lists, so like you can search for like vacant properties, probate, pre-foreclosures. I think there's like 9 or 10 different motivations that you can search. You can even stack motivations where you build a list where the properties, it's got 3 or 4 layers or 5 layers of motivation as well. And then you can download those skip trace and download those contacts, and it's nationwide. You can do that so that you can market to those people, whether it's direct mail or text or cold call. And skip tracing is part of that package. It's not a la carte. But if you're over the limit, I think the limit's like 100. I think if you're over that, it's 8 cents a skip trace. So it's a very good platform. Like I said,
the reason he was saying if you sign up, make sure you sign up through the REIA. It's because one of the ladies that's got a REIA in North Carolina, she knows the guy that owned that platform. And for the REIA as part of that group, they waived the
setup fee.
Yeah, the setup fee, and it's like $1,000 or something. So because we're part of that group, they waived that $1,000 with Connected Investors. And we've had people not listen to us, and then we tried to get that refund, and it was like pulling teeth. So it's better just to go through the REIA. But that Connected.
Yeah, there's also extra perks and benefits for REIA members as well.
Say that again, James. I didn't hear you.
Okay, yeah. So there's also extra perks for being, getting Connected Investors through the REIA versus on your own. Like for example, Contract Genie. That's where you can draft a lease. So like if you're going to do a rental property, or if you're JVing, joint venturing with somebody, you can create legal documents to form. It'll ask you a bunch of questions. It'll ask you to select what state, and then it'll base state's law questions you answer, it will generate a legal document, whether it's, like I said, a lease agreement or a JV agreement, a contract to buy a house. I mean, there's tons of it. And that, if you just Google and join on your own, the public doesn't get that. But Karen, our friend Karen, negotiated for us and for our members. And I think there's, like, I remember right off the top of my head.
These are just some other things. There's a lot more. Tell everybody what you do. You'd be surprised how deals will fall into your pocket. The key is, you might think you don't have a deal because somebody's asking a price. Like, for example, a friend of mine sent me a deal and it's $135,000. Well, many times wholesalers bring me deals. I very rarely pay what the wholesaler wants. In fact, we just found out we have the clear to go on a property that had a title defect. It's 2.5 acres up off of 99. And we're going to probably close on that this week. And they originally came in at like $170,000, $180,000, I think. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but I think we're going to end up buying it for $110,000. So a lot of times people will give you a high price. And the key is, if we're looking at 15 or 20 deals, and we don't have to make a great deal on every one. We just need to make a great deal on the one that we're working on. And then the next one, we make a great deal. So we'll talk a lot about that in the negotiation class. But tell people what you're doing. Don't be thrown off if the numbers don't make sense, because very rarely do they. And then when we go in and we do our due diligence, we go back and negotiate with the people, and we routinely get the number to be what it needs to be to make money for us. Media, mass, social. So there's a lot of things. And I just threw some things out here, marketing. So I don't know why I put them in there. The other thing is so we talked a little bit about deals, because it really is the same thing over and over, and we just go deeper and deeper. And, in an hour and a half, we can't do that. But these are things we want to become experts on. And some other ways you can buy is like ask the people what it takes to buy the property, how they can buy it. We bought with lease options, and lease options are really good because it means we don't pay interest on their equity. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but not paying interest on somebody's equity could be the difference between having a cash flow and not having a cash flow. And if that went over your head, don't worry about it. I'm just telling you, that's life-changing knowledge right there. And if you understand it, then you got it. And now all of a sudden you say, well, wait, you mean I can do a lease option instead of buying a property and have a much better deal? Yes, absolutely. So just make notes of things like that and ask more specific questions if you want, but those are big things. So we can buy with lease options, we can buy with seller financing. There's, I have a software called C Value, and it's software to figure out how to amortize loans. And I just realized it has like 4 or 5 different ways of doing things. It has simple interest in it, has deferring payments, has changing the interest payments, has skipping payments. All of those, if we're seller financing or we're financing from a seller, all of those are techniques that we use when we're trying to buy property to increase our cash flow. Those are some of the things we'll talk about in the creative ways to buy deals on that 26th and 27th. But just be aware that you need to get more up to speed. Anytime you're around somebody that's a deal maker, like Peter Fortunato or myself, and there's a few other people in Houston that really know how to do creative deals, hang around those people and find out what they're doing, and ask them till you're embarrassed. Equity share, just another way of buying properties. Defer payments, smart partnerships. That partnership I'm doing in Clearwater, I'm 50% partners with the person, but I set it up because we put the money up. I set it up where I'm 100% owner, and they can have an option to buy 50% interest if they get the house repaired and up on the market. Does that make sense? Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So there's a lot of ways to do these kinds of things. So some of the ways that we get money.
Sorry, can you repeat? Can you repeat what you said? You said, if that makes sense. You said 50%, and I didn't catch it.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked. Who is this that is asking? I can't see. I don't know the name, but I'll go through it anyway. So if the,
Hey there, it's me,
okay, so like in this
Tiffany.
particular case, a person said, hey, I got this good house in Clearwater I want us to fix up together. And of course, I'm not there and I'm probably not going to go there. And so in this case, I said, well, I'll put up the money, but because it's my money at stake, I want to be in total control of this deal. If your part of the job is to get it up in the market, get it ready, and get it on the market, then at closing, you can have an option to buy 50% interest in the property for $1. So why I did that is because if he falls off the face of the earth, I'm not a partner with him. And I can go in there, I have my son, or hell, I may even be able to talk James to go over there and finish the job. And then he becomes my new partner. But if on the other hand, this guy performs and does everything he's supposed to do, then for $1, he can exercise his right to buy 50% interest in that property. And we project it will make $80,000 on that deal.
Is that because you were the investor and he put in kind of like the sweat equity,
Yes,
like the work?
absolutely.
Okay.
And well, that's one of the reasons. The other reason is because I've done this before, and then the person either didn't put in the sweat equity, or they quit in the middle, or they had family problems, or whatever. Something happened to them that kept them from being successful. And the basis of the bargain was, hey, if I put in the money, then I've got to protect that money at all costs. And that means whether I like you or not, at the end of this deal, the money's got to come back from where it came from. And so we have to set it up like this. Otherwise, I'm not going to put the money in. I have to protect the money. And if you go goofy on me, like for one thing is I'm not going to argue with somebody that's done 3 rehabs. You know, I've done 1,000, you've done 3. I'm just not going to argue with you. Now, that doesn't mean you can't show me an error in my ways and I won't listen to you. But at some point, if we disagree, we've got to have some method that somebody can make a decision. And it can't be left as like a judge or somebody who 3 years later figures out what's right or wrong. So by me being an owner, then I keep that from happening. And for example, and I learned this from Jack Miller. Jack Miller says a guy wanted to borrow $1,000 or something from him years ago. And he said, well, what do you got to put up as collateral? And the guy said, oh, I got this jet ski. Well, the way Jack Miller set this up, this is very, very powerful. And this, just understanding what Jack said, all those 35 years ago, I've done several deals with this in mind. And it's like, okay, if I put up the money, then I want to own the jet ski. Now, if I own the jet ski, it's going to sit in my garage, not your garage. And when you want to pay me back my $1,000, and if there's any interest or whatever the deal is, then I'll give you your keys to your jet ski back. And in other words, and instead of me loaning you the money and hope you do the right thing, I'm gonna give you the money, and you're gonna give me the jet ski. And the jet ski,
Give me something in return for my investment until you finish what you said you were going to do, and then you get it back.
Right, exactly. And you just make sure it's worth a lot more than $1,000.
Yeah.
You know, and now with real estate, we can do that. We can be a lien holder in real estate, and we can protect ourselves. But if you get the wrong person, you can fight them for 2 or 3 years. We just went through an eviction on a property in San Antonio where the guy was a total bum, and his goal was to stay in that house as long as he could. And there's a lot of available tools for tenants to stay in the house if they know how to jump through the hoops. And he jumped through a bunch of the hoops. He eventually made a couple mistakes, but you know, instead of having the house back in 45 days like we should have, because this guy was pretty knowledgeable, it took us 5 months to get the house back. So we
won't the lease agreement have some sort of clause in there where he can't just stay?
Yeah, they do, but there's tricks people use. They can slow down the process. They can file bankruptcy. There's all kinds of things they can do. So yes, absolutely. But like once a person files bankruptcy, then that overrides the ruling of the judge. Like if we get a right to take the property back through the court hearing, then that overrides it. Also in the JP court, a JP court is not, a ruling by JP court on eviction is not binding. They still have a right to go to district court. And I've had tenants take me to federal court because they were military person. In federal court, you can't even use a regular attorney. You have to use an attorney who is registered to practice in a federal court, and most attorneys aren't. So, and all that means is more dollar signs. So, but those are things that I've learned a lot of them the hard way. I've also learned a lot of them because I have buddies who do this, and I'll say, Tom, what would you do? Have you had this problem? Or I'll call our Eddie, I'll call our attorney friend and say, what would you do here? How would you do that? And when you make friends with these people, they're going to take time to talk to you, and they're going to help you and at least guide you in the right direction. You'd be surprised how valuable having a community around you that know how to do things and have friends. It really, they say your net worth is equal to your net worth. That's exactly what they mean. And it really pays when you're doing stuff. Tom, I don't know if I told you this story, James, but Tom said, hey, I've got to pay off this lien. I bought this property and the person had a lien against it, and I found out I have to pay it off. And I said, well, was it a homestead? And he knew I was going to San Antonio, and he wanted me to take $8,000 to the attorney representing the person with the lien. And I said, was it a homestead, the guy you bought it from? And he said, yes. And I said, well, you don't have to pay that. And he said, what are you talking about? And he didn't even know it. And Tom's been doing this his whole life for 40 years also. And he didn't know it. And the thing is, none of us can know everything, but you get a little piece of information here, a little piece of information, and just him accidentally talking to me that saved him $8,000 on that one conversation. And likewise, if I'm running into something I don't really have a clear idea on or clear control over, then I'll reach out to my buddies and my friends and the people that are in the group. I find out who's doing things in the group who have special knowledge, and I'll reach out to them and I'll ask them, like, do I have to do this? What's the best way to do this? I'm trying to pull permits for this development here. What is your experience? Do you know the inspectors? Do you know people who run the permits through? Whatever it is that we're working on. Anyway, not to be a dead horse. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I went on too long. So another big issue besides finding the deals, we got to fund the deals. And in our 3-day class, we spend 5 hours on this right here. I think. You think that's a fair assessment? How much time we spend on it, James?
Yeah, you spend a lot of time on it, but it's also very important to know the different sources of money.
Yeah, just for example, like seller financing, we can easily talk 2 hours on that. And it's good to hear it. And the first time you hear it, you'll probably absorb about 25% of it. And the second time you'll hear about, understand another 25%. But then you'll say, like, and this has happened to me so many times, I've been around some really smart people, I go to their stuff, and then I'll say, oh, wait, didn't Jimmy talk about a future advance clause? And isn't that what I need to do here? And it's like, how do I do that? How do I do that? And then next thing you know, I'm looking up a future advance clause, trying to figure out how to set it up. So every one of these things is a source of money. The person selling you a house is a source of a loan. They can loan you the money on the house. Hard money is the same thing. It's people who give typically short-term loans. So that forces us to either, at the end of the loan, which is usually 6 months or 9 months, we have to either sell it or refinance it. And then institutional lending, that covers short-term money and long-term money. And so we have to kind of master that. Also, on this one, when we go to sell, we oftentimes are going to be using institutional lending on the buyer side. So it doesn't hurt us to be smart about that. On the house that Drew and I are selling right now, the realtor brought us a buyer and they already had a lender. So I got the lender on the phone, and I not only qualified the buyer, I also qualified the lender to make sure the lender is a real lender and can do what they're supposed to do. So these are the kinds of things we're doing. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but you'll be surprised how fast you pick this up when you start doing it. Private lender.
Yeah, and hard money, back up, Ray, hard money. Need to kind of dive into just a little bit, not too deep, but as far as like what hard money is, they're basically asset lending. They base their lending on the asset. Okay. So you're on some of these, your personal credit or your business credit plays a factor, but hard money is really about the equity that you have. And a lot of hard money lenders won't loan over a certain amount, like maybe 70%, 65 or 70%, something like that. And they do it, one, to make sure that you get yourself in the right deal. So they can actually be good, you know, another set of eyes to make sure that's a good deal to be a part of. It is more expensive, but it's also designed to be short term, you know, typically for flips.
James, I'm so glad you're on this call, because that's one of the most important concepts. Is a lot of people, and I would have missed it completely, a lot of people think that they need money to do real estate, and you don't need money, you need a good deal. And if you get a good deal, you can either go to a hard money lender who will loan based on their experience of dealing with these broken down properties, or you need a partner to go with you to get the financing, kind of be like a letter of credit. And that a hard money lender may not want to give great terms to somebody who doesn't have a good track record, but if you had a partner that had a good track record, then they might give killer terms. Because a hard money lender wants to make sure that the property, whatever the strategy is, like we're going to buy it, fix it up, and sell it, they want to make sure that you're going to get to the finish line. So they're going to analyze it. And ideally, and we spent a lot of time in the 3-day deal, we speak about how to analyze it. Like what is the formula? What is the numbers got to be for a hard money lender to say yes? And if you're in the REIA and you got hard money lenders in the room, remember the deal, one day a deal's going to fall in your lap. And if you know how the hard money lender works, you're going to be able to say yes to that deal. So when you're around hard money lenders, you know, bug them to death. Be the most curious person in the room and ask them every step of the process, because next week you might be in front of Aunt Jane and say, oh, I know I can borrow this amount of money for this house. Can you live with that amount of money? And she might say yes. And now you just got a deal because you know where you're getting your money from. And there's a lot of parts to this that we got to figure out, but you don't have to know all the answers. That's the power of the REIA. When you're a member of the REIA, you don't have to have all the answers because they're in the room.
Yeah, and another just really quick thing, when it comes to hard money, and then the next one on here is private lenders and partners. When it comes to that, don't wait till you have a deal to spark up a conversation or a relationship. Get pre-approved, get pre-qualified, get set up with hard money lenders, private lenders, and partners. Do that right now while you're finding deals, so that you can act on it.
You should be doing that. You're better at this than I am.
Hey, y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard that.
And I actually believe it, James. I mean, the last two things you said are like invaluable, and I would have just glossed right over them. Private lenders are, I remember sitting down at a table with Dolores, and I said, Dolores, I need this is a long time ago, but I said, we're eating lunch. I said, I need to borrow $65,000 to do this deal. And we're going to close the title company. And she literally got her checkbook out and wrote me a check for 65. She started writing the check. I said, no. There's a process we do. You don't ever give me the money. You give that to the title company. And in return for that, you get a security instrument that protects you. Now, private lenders are like that. They can be very sophisticated or they can be very unsophisticated, but they're usually people that believe in you. And a private lender can write you big checks and allow you to do things you could never do on your own. And I can't tell you how many deals. I mean, I probably would have only done a third of the deals I've done if I didn't understand how to work with private lenders. That's such a big thing. Partners, same thing. People, Doug in Florida probably wouldn't be able to do this deal if he didn't have a partner that could swing it. And he found the property, but he still couldn't put the deal together. And he picks up the phone and says, Ray, you want to do this with me? And I said, yes. And I said, tell me the numbers. And then he only wanted to make like $15,000 or $20,000. And I said, well, let's just split it. I mean, you found the deal. You're going to get the deal up and running. You just got to let me be the boss when we disagree. And he said, okay, it's a deal. And so, and I'm happy with that, because if he finds another deal, I'm going to be partners with him. Now, I don't know. Okay. So sorry about the screen.
Heads up, Ray. It is 7:26. I know we started about 10 minutes late, but let's go to about 7:45.
Okay.
I just want to reminder on the time.
So we talked about looking for, the REIA is going to be where you find your lenders, your partners, your deals, and I think friends. Many of my friends, when I first started, are still my friends today. Several of them have died because it's been 40 years. A lot of them were older. A lot of them were 50 or 60 years old when I started. And I looked up to those guys, and they were always happy to provide information. I think they saw that I was serious, and they probably saw themselves, looking at me, and it was easy to get their help. So think about becoming a member of the REIA, because it has everything we need in it, or almost everything. And this is where this is where we basically raised $350,000 for the homeless shelter in San Antonio. In fact, that person right there is Tom Hennigan. He founded the National REIA 50 years ago. And that was my ex-partner. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple years ago. This is the lady that wrote Mitch Stevens' book on My Deal in 1,000 Real Estate. This is Jay, was an executive director, a CPA. Joe Zaragoza, good friend. We're both ex Coast Guard people. I mean, it's just these people become your friends, and you do amazing things with each other, and it's just a great thing. This is where we were going to get our award for the best REIA in the nation. I think that's me right there. Anyway, this is the wire. Oh, have you ever seen this picture, James? This is the wire meeting.
Yes, I have.
Real estate focus group, and the only way if you're a guy, the only way you can go to it is if you dress in drag. And so this is get 4 guys dressing as women to go to the wire meeting. So anyway, that's kind of goofy. So benefits of being a member, y'all can see that. I'm not going to go through each one of them. Some of our discounts and networking, blah blah blah. If y'all decide to join, if you're not a member, or if you know somebody who wants to be a member, we don't mind sitting down with that person one-on-one for like 30 minutes or so, just 20-30 minutes, to just see where you're going and if it's a good fit, or if you've got particular problems you're working on. We'll help you troubleshoot them, or we'll tell you who we think can help you troubleshoot them. Occasionally we take on students, and so that may be something you want to be interested in. It's a lot more expensive. That's really not our main focus. But because one of the benefits of having a bunch of students over the last few years is I really kind of have seen what slows them down and what stops them, and almost every one of those things are reversible. So see, these are some more things. You get your own website. There's a lot of other benefits of being a REIA member. And I don't know what else to put. So is anybody going to ask me any questions?
I think you might have put everybody to sleep tonight.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that your family?
Oh yeah, that was that was 2 of my grandkids. Well, so that was, so Sharon Fernandez, which is this lady here, she was my partner for 10 years in Alamo, and she was brilliant. She kept me in line. We had a meeting every week for 10 years. And I just love her to death. And she died from breast cancer a couple years ago. She had a pretty amazing history for her. In fact, before she passed away, they were managing over 600 doors. And I learned a lot from her. I think she learned some from me. It was a great relationship. And then this is 2 of my 4 grandkids. So this was taken when we had 2, but now we have 4. And this is Sharon's ex-husband, or husband, I guess, widow now. So, yeah, I owe a lot to Sharon. I mean, I still get teary-eyed. Just it's the friends you make along the way and the amazing things you do. When we raised those hundreds of thousands of dollars for that women's shelter, we couldn't have done it without Joe Zaragoza, who was in that picture, and Sharon. I mean, but it was amazing to be such a big part of the community that we were in, and then just to be a part of the deals and stuff that people were doing inside our REIAs. If it weren't for people like James and Drew and David and the volunteers, I probably wouldn't be involved in it anymore. But because they make it so much fun, it's just, to me, it's worthwhile being in it. And I think that if there's something you want to do in life, you need to go hang out with the people that are doing it and be around those people, and you'll find out that you'll be doing it in no time. And that's probably the message of the REIA, is create an environment where people can feel safe and not in danger, and they're surrounded by friends. And you'll be surprised what you can do, because this is not something that you just wake up knowing how to do. I mean, I've spent 40 years and I'm still making mistakes, but we've been real active and I've learned a lot, and I'm willing to share and pay it forward. If it weren't for Jack Miller and Jimmy Napier and Dyke Spotiford and Peter Fortunato and Richard Nugent and Merv Lowe and Dick Aleckson, I mean, I wouldn't have had a chance. But all those people were instrumental, and not to mention my wife and my brother, who have been my partners all along, in some way or other. So it can be a fun business, and I think if you're serious about it, or if you really want to give it a shot, then get involved and become a volunteer, be close to the operation, and then when people like me or somebody's around you that has some expertise that's interesting to you, then ask them till the cows come home. That's the way I am. I mean, I'm relentless on asking questions.
Yeah, so I put in the chat, I put 2 links in the chat. One is a link to my calendar that if you want to book a call with us, you can. And then also, and you can actually do a phone call or a Zoom call. It does give you that option. On link, and copy that link and save it in case you decide, 2 weeks from now, you want to schedule a call. And then there's also a link to join. If you're not a member and you found value in tonight, then and you want to join, then there's a link for that as well. I want to share a quick little nugget, I guess you can click. Ray has talked a few times tonight about, people just bring him deals. And it comes from being involved and being in the REIA, and part of that mastermind group that we're a part of, where we meet with other REIA leaders. One of my really good friends in that group, his name is Sam, and he wears a cowboy hat to every meeting he goes to, and he made that his brand several years ago. People would walk up to him and say, "Hey, I was told to talk to the man hat," and they found him. And this last time that we were together, he shared that story, but he also threw something else in there. And the reason he made that his brand is the fact that he realized that he can't know every single person, but people can know him. So Ray has made it his brand, that he buys deals. And so he's got his reputation from other wholesalers and, people like that, and from being in the room and doing deals. So I just wanted to encourage you to get involved and get visible. Talk to David and Drew also next time you see them, about things that they've been able to get involved with since starting to volunteer and come around the REIA. And if you're in San Antonio, talk to Sheldon. He's our membership director in San Antonio, because he was able to go to this mastermind group with us. Getting involved and being around and being visible, people recognize you, and they bring opportunities. And that's what it's all about, is creating opportunities.
Yeah, there's no upsell. If you want to be a part of the REIA, then show up, be a part of it. We'll probably try to put you to work and try to make the REIA better and stronger. The more people you have in the REIA, the better it is, because then people like Peter Fortunato, who are like literally you know, he's had a quadruple bypass. He's 70 something years old. He's not going to be around for long, forever, but he's a genius. I mean, he's one of the smartest people I've ever run across, and he will share with you experiences, answers, anything you want all day long. And a lot of the communities like that. We've got a guy in San Antonio. I don't know if anybody on the phone knows him, but Harold's like that. Harold's just out there quietly doing deals all day long, every day, and he's making it work. And he's got his wife involved. He's got his children involved, just like I do. And he's like an open book. And these people are out there. You just got to be where they're at. You got to hang out with them if you want to learn from them. And you'll be surprised. You will be influenced in a way. If you're at a bar, sitting in a bar table, you're going to be influenced with the people that sit in that bar. If you're sitting in a REIA, and you're around those people and you're looking at what they're doing, you're going to be influenced by that. And next thing you know, you're going to be doing the deals. And what seems impossible now is not impossible at all. It's very doable.
I wanted to ask something just a short. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, James.
No, go ahead. I've got a delay on my end, so go ahead.
Okay, thanks. It was just a short question. I don't know what skip tracing is, and y'all mentioned it, and I typed it earlier. And I know, Ray, you mentioned that you didn't do well with cold calls, but I think you said you did okay with knocking on doors. But then y'all mentioned skip tracing. I wasn't sure what that was.
Right. So skip tracing is when you build a list, of, probate leads, okay, where somebody's passed away and everything. You build that list, and it may have 1,000 people, it may have 200, whatever. You plug it into a system that's skip tracing it, and what that does is it locates the owner's information, okay? Their email, their phone number, different things like that, so that you can reach out to them, okay? And so a lot of people that cold call, and my version of the reason it's called cold calling is it's literally a cold outreach. You're interrupting their day, no matter what they've got going on. You're calling them, to find out if there's any interest or need to sell that property. Okay, that's called an outbound lead, cold calling. They're completely cold. Now, if you're doing postcards or direct mail, or you have a website, or you're doing some other type of ads where they have to reach out to you, that's inbound marketing. And it's also when they reach out to you, they're warm. They might be hot, but in the beginning they're warm, and then through the questions that you're asking over the phone, then they turn into a hot lead, or they go cold, depending on their motivation.
So would you recommend marketing like Facebook marketing or paper marketing like flyers on doors?
Yeah, and what you're doing, think about inbound and outbound. Inbound means that somebody's seeing your marketing and they're calling you. So that lead is a lot more valuable than an outbound deal where you do cold calling. Cold calling, people aren't expecting you. Inbound lead, they're asking you for help. Now, they may just be trying to be a tire kicker or whatever, but at one time I had a website. I buy houses in the 9-county area around Houston, on all the counties, and people would call. We would get 70 leads a month off of that, and out of that, if I would have been more aggressive, we could have probably bought 5 houses a month off of that one lead source alone. So in the beginning, it's hard to pay for a lead source like that because it's real expensive. And let's say that you can convert 1 out of 30 phone calls. Well, somebody that's more experienced might be able to convert 1 out of 6. So that person can pay, their marketing cost is literally 1/6 of what yours is because they're converting a lot higher number. So you got to figure out how to convert. But the one thing that happens in real estate is that it doesn't sit static. It either is becoming a liability or it's an asset. And the way it becomes a liability is it sits empty. There's insurance is not covering it because it's the wrong kind of insurance. The taxes are 3% per year, typically in Texas. So their equity is dwindling every month, right? And if there's a mortgage, it's dwindling rapidly. And if the seller is making a mortgage on a house that they're not living in, and maybe a tenant's in there, but it's not paying rent, they're motivated. They're a motivated seller. And if we can just figure out how to structure a deal that makes sense for them and makes sense for us, we're going to do a lot more deals. That's the good thing about this business is there's more leads than you can shake a stick at. And that concept of going deep versus wide is get to know people on a more better level, and get to know a few techniques on how to structure deals, and you're going to probably make a lot better deals and make more deals. So lead generation is a big thing of what we got to do. But when Jack Miller started, he told me this story, and now we've met 3 or 4 other guys who are very, very good over the years. As an introvert, I would never do this. As an extrovert, you should be out tonight doing it. He would go he'd pick a neighborhood, say a neighborhood has 300 houses. He would knock on a door and say, hey, I'm looking for a house in this neighborhood. Do you know anybody that's got one for sale? And if he saw a for rent or for sale sign, he'd definitely knock on that door, right? And then they'd say, you know, there's 100 different things they'd say, but usually it'd say like leave, or hey, no, Mary across the street, I know she just passed away and her children are looking for a buyer of the property. There's empty houses or empty properties or underperforming properties. We're surrounded by them. And when you start realizing it, now you can make better deals. And the more leads you have and the more deals you're working, the better deals you can make. I mean, that's
Thank you. I think I have to try the introverted route. Good.
And when it comes to marketing,
I became an expert on inbound leads because I was an introvert. But
okay.
I really wish I was an extrovert because it's so much better to be an extrovert. But I think introverts generally do better than extroverts because they know they're limited, and so they fight harder. And extroverts just take it for granted because it's easy to talk to people.
Yeah, when it comes to marketing, you know, no matter if it's inbound or outbound, direct mail, cold calling, door knocking, you name it, there's probably hundreds of them. They all work, okay? Even direct mail. Direct mail works, but it's about consistency. You know, if you do something one time, it's probably not going to work, or do it twice, it may not work. But when you do it every week, every month, every quarter, things like that, it's going to work. Also, the marketing you do today is going to bring leads tomorrow, figuratively speaking. Okay. So it's down the road. So it is 7.
You don't have no questions? You don't have no.
Does anybody have?
I was just going to say thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
See, now John is a licensed AC guy. So when he calls, I always make sure I answer his questions because I need him to answer my questions when I call him.
Let's see.
Yeah, if y'all got any AC questions, just call Ray.
No, call John.
Y'all can call anytime.
Okay. Is Julia?
I have a silly question. Oops.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Sorry, I interrupted somebody.
No, go ahead.
Here's my silly question. I really prefer my first time in anything is to shadow someone. An example, Mr. Ray, I've met you before.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a month ago or whatever? Either way, James, I appreciate you linking me to this. Being new to Texas, the towns and the houses and all that, and I'm still trying to learn, but I really would prefer to shadow someone at the beginning with anything. And that's just me. And I understand about sending letters and postcards and keep doing it so the same person with the house still knows that you're sending it to them. And eventually somebody will call you back, or either that or just keep throwing your letter off.
So, Margaret, I remember mine in your conversation very clearly. I remember everything about it. So,
Thank you.
And maybe you're a memorable person, I don't know, but I don't remember typically that often. But so just hang out in the group when we're working on deals. Just make sure you go with us to the deal. Now, like try to figure out how to get involved in the wire group also. And then, and just go to the focus groups. You know, that's where I met Dick Ellingson. I met Dick Ellingson at a focus group, and the next thing you know, he's got 20 rent houses in Pasadena, and I'm over there buying him lunch and helping him paint his house on the weekends and everything. But I needed that because I needed to know how to do stuff, and I needed to know how to have that relationship with somebody that was smart and involved, and you know, he is 20 years ahead of me. So that was invaluable to me, and I got that when I went to the focus groups. I got that. That's why we do bus tours regularly.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, and I think I don't know who's all been on one. Probably John's probably been on one or two of them. And I'm sure even though John is in kind of a tradesperson as an AC guy, he knows how to do a lot of stuff. I'm sure he got a lot out of it, just because there's so much to know and learn, and we just got to be out there with the people that are doing it.
And these focus.
I've got a question for you, Ray. It's probably a long one, so let her go ahead.
My last question was, I guess I'm going to click on those links that's in the chat, right, Mr. James, and keep looking at the emails about a focus group or whatever it's called again. You said it. I forgot what you said.
Yeah. So if you just text me, I'll guide you to the website. It's greaterhoustonrea.net, and then you just look at the events calendar. But if you reach out to me offline, I can show you the calendar and, you know, get you on to one of those events.
Perfect. And that will let me know the day that I'm not working, because I work very rarely anyways, and I could join. Thank you. I'll send you a text. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption, sir.
Hey, James, now Tiffany asked about the 2 or 3 day deal. Now, that's not the negotiation deal. So you said you gave her the information. I don't know if you gave it to her, but that's a separate thing. So the negotiation thing is a paid class. I think it's $299 for early sign up. I'm not positive of that, but we also, if you become a member, then like every 2 or 3 months, we'll do like a 3-day event. And where we'll go out to 3 or 4 houses, and and that is free.
I sent her a message and let her know where the next one is going to be. So
James, you're breaking up. Is he breaking up, or is it just me?
Yeah, it was hard to hear that one.
How am I now?
Good.
That's better.
You still you still look like a lumberjack.
It does
for you.
The face, the volume's better.
I just moved my computer 2 inches. That's all it took. All right, but yeah, we'll work on because you know, here's the thing. He sits here and he talks about doing these 3-day classes, and then when I get him up on the calendar and I force him to show up, you know, then he beats me up for it. But he makes all these promises on these calls, and then, you know, it's like, Ray, hold on. But yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll get the next one on the calendar and everything like that. But yeah, if you need any information, you guys have a way to get a hold of us, so we'll make sure to get that to you.
So what was your question, John? And then we'll wrap it up.
I've got one for sale. I'm selling it for $130,000. I'm trying to owner finance it. You talked a little bit about that earlier. Is there anything? I've been having it out there for about 10 days. I just put it on Facebook. Do you list yours with a realtor or?
Hold on, I screwed up. Let's see. Hold on. I was trying to do something and make Ray a host.
Why you want to leave?
Hold on one second.
James, you're on mute.
know the answer. I don't know.
Okay, so I screwed up. I was trying to transfer host of the meeting to Ray, and I actually booted him out of the meeting. And Zoom has this thing, I don't know how to fix it, but Zoom has this deal that if you remove somebody from the meeting, it doesn't let you back in. So that being said, John, what was your question?
I'll call him. I'll call him. Thanks, James.
Okay. Well, I was going to see if I could take a stab at it and see if maybe somebody else could pick something up from it. But
okay. Yeah, that's fine. And it's just I've got a house up for sale. It's owner finance. I'm trying to owner finance it myself. Been up there for about 10 days. I'm selling it myself.
So the property is for sale, and the owner is he's paying on it.
I own it.
Oh, you own it.
I'm trying to sell it. I don't have a buyer yet.
Okay. Do you have any debt on it?
No.
You own it free and clear.
Yeah.
So you own the property free and clear, and you want to sell it, seller financing.
Right.
Okay. And what would be the question there? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I know the basic ways to do it, but it sounded like he's done some different stuff with it, with seller financing. So I was just gonna see if y'all had any tips on that.
So for one, the basic thing is the first and foremost is, you definitely want to get a down payment. You want to be about, you want to get probably 10 to 20% down, minimum if they can. Okay. You probably want to pull the comps on it. Okay. So you can determine the market value. Okay. And go with the full retail value, like fixed up value. Okay. If it needs work or anything like that. Because you can actually, and I would not quote me on this. This would have to be a, you'd have to refer to the Dodd-Frank rules on this, but I believe you can go 10 to 15% above market value. And then you can also set the interest rate. I think depending on your price point, you can do like 8 to 10%, something like that. And then you just create a note. And an attorney can draw up the document, a title company. Ray, I'm sure, knows how he could probably draw up the document for that, things like that. But it's all about, just negotiating the right terms, down payment, purchase price, interest rate, and then, how the payments are going to be made. Okay. And there's also requirements. Go ahead.
About 10 to 20% down, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And
how long is too long to let one sit, trying to sell it before you drop it down, the price?
It varies. It really depends on your patience level. Typically if I've got a flip, like if I buy and rehab and flip, I'm wanting that thing gone. So I'm not reducing it like every week, but I'm really conscious about when I do it and how I do it. You may consider, you trying to sell this property on your own, or are you trying to list it?
Right now, I've got it selling it on my own.
Okay. Then what you may want to do is look at all your marketing that you're doing. You might even just run some Facebook ads for like $5 or $10 a day, or $2 a day, something like that. You use the property address, and then you do like a 1 to 5 mile radius around it, that you're looking for buyers, that, you don't need to have, you're the bank. So you make up, what the requirements are.
Okay.
Okay. that would be the first step that I would take. You know,
I did start the Facebook marketing yesterday.
Make sure that your marketing is key. It really is key. My parents had a property they just sold within the last year or two, and they had a personal friend of theirs who has their license list the property. Okay. And that property did not get any activity, you know, after a certain amount of time. And my parents, you know, came to me and they're like, hey, you know, what's going on? And I looked at the listing and I told my mom, I said, you need to do these 5 things. I don't know how many it was, but I said, you need to do these things. You need to get seller financing in the description. You need to have professional pictures taken. You need to do this, you need to do that, and gave them a list of things that they needed to do. And then they ended up doing that. And because they had a brother-in-law agreement or friendship agreement, whatever it was, that she would sell this house. But then they actually hired her broker. And once they actually did that and put some other things into place, within probably, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks, they got a contract on it, and then they closed like a month later.
Okay.
You know, 3 or something like that. So your marketing is key. Okay, you don't necessarily have to hire a realtor, but whether you hire a realtor or not, your marketing is key. You know, your description, you know, how you describe it, the pictures you put up, you know, where you post it and market it. You might network with some realtors or reach out to some realtors and say, hey, I don't really want to hire a listing agent, but if you can bring me a buyer, I'll pay you your commission, you know, whatever it takes, you know, and just let them know you're offering seller financing.
All right. I may do that, what you just said, especially that last part. You know, just tell me if you bring me a buyer, I'll give you a cut.
Yeah.
Because I don't really want to list it.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. You know, I apologize for kicking Ray off, but you know, thanks for being here. Hope you got a lot out of it. And if you have any questions, reach out. We're here to help.
James, can I just ask one more question? It's really to John. He just said he didn't want to list it. John, I've heard people say that they don't want to list because they're not real estate agents, or they don't feel like working with a real estate agent to get it listed. Is that why?
No, I just don't like locking it up.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. That was all.
Yeah, that's why.
Thank you. And
yeah,
thanks, James.
There's several reasons. There's several reasons that people don't like to list properties. One is, you know, they don't want to pay the commission. You know, or 2, they don't want people coming in their house all the time. They don't want it out there in the world. You know, there's lots of different reasons. Sometimes people have had a bad experience with a realtor, you know, and they don't want to do it. Sometimes it's an ego thing. Oh, I can sell it myself, you know. So like when you drive around and you see those for sale by owner signs, that's what a lot of it is. You know, they think they can sell it on their own until they try it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it probably another 3 weeks, and then I've got somebody else.
Well, reach out to Ray. Again, I apologize for kicking him off, but you guys have a good night. Reach out if you need anything, and we'll see you at our next events.
Good night. Thank you.